The situation across the eastern United States right now is absolutely unprecedented, and what's about to happen this weekend could make everything exponentially worse. We're looking at 91,000 people in Nashville alone who are still without power 6 days after Winter Storm Fern devastated the region. And now, and I cannot believe I am saying this, the same areas that are barely hanging on are about to get hit by another major winter storm. This is not just another weather story. This is a compound disaster unfolding in real time, where communities that haven't even begun to recover from one catastrophic storm are now facing the prospect of getting slammed again before they can restore basic services like electricity and heat. The National Weather Service Weather Prediction Center issued a statement this morning that sent chills down my spine. Forecast confidence continues to grow that a significant snowstorm will impact much of the Carolinas into southeast Virginia this weekend. Let me put this into perspective for you. Nashville Electric Service reported this morning that they still have 91,000 customers without power. That's not 91,000 homes. That's 91,000 customer accounts, which translates to potentially 200,000 to 250,000 actual people who have been living without electricity for 6 straight days in sub-freezing temperatures. And here's the thing that makes this so incredibly dangerous. They have 216 confirmed broken power poles that still need to be replaced. The crews working around the clock, and I mean literally around the clock with 14 to 16-hour shifts, have described this as the most significant ice event since 1994. That's 32 years. Think about that. The infrastructure damage is so severe that Nashville's mayor had to declare a local emergency just to bring in private contractors to help with snow removal because 37 of the city's 95 snowplows broke down under the strain. But if you think the current situation is bad, what's coming this weekend could be catastrophic. Models are showing a coastal low-pressure system developing in the Gulf of Mexico Friday night that is forecast to rapidly intensify as it tracks up the eastern seaboard. The European model is particularly aggressive with this system, showing a bomb cyclone scenario that could dump 12 to 15 inches of heavy, wet snow from the Carolinas through Virginia and potentially into southern New England. Now here's where this gets really concerning. The areas that are going to be in the crosshairs of this weekend storm are the exact same regions that are still trying to dig out from Winter Storm Fern. We're talking about communities in Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and the Carolinas where hundreds of thousands of people are still dealing with power outages, where emergency shelters are still at capacity, and where the electrical grid is hanging on by a thread. The meteorological setup for this weekend is textbook dangerous. We have an Arctic air mass that's been locked in place across the eastern United States. This negative Arctic oscillation pattern that is keeping temperatures well below normal through at least the first week of February. This frigid air is going to serve as the perfect backdrop for heavy snow production when that Gulf moisture starts streaming northward. What is particularly alarming about the model guidance is the disagreement we're seeing in terms of track and intensity. The European model has this storm much further inland, which would bring heavy snow to areas like Richmond, Washington, D.C., and potentially even Philadelphia and New York City. But the GFS model keeps it more offshore, which would focus the heaviest impacts on the outer banks of North Carolina and Cape Cod. Here's why that uncertainty is so dangerous right now. Emergency management officials in the affected states are having to make critical decisions about resource allocation. Do they continue focusing all their efforts on Winter Storm Fern recovery, or do they start shifting resources to prepare for this new threat? It's an impossible choice, and frankly, they don't have enough resources to do both effectively. I spoke with emergency management officials in Tennessee this morning, and they told me they've already cleared over 3,000 downed trees statewide just to restore access for utility crews. But here's the problem. They estimate there are thousands more trees that are damaged but haven't fallen yet. These trees are loaded with ice, weakened by the previous storm, and if we get another significant ice or snow event this weekend, they're going to come down and knock out power lines that have already been repaired. The human toll of this situation cannot be overstated. Nashville has 440 people staying in community warming centers, with another 1,400 at homeless shelters. These are people who have been displaced from their homes for nearly a week now. Think about that. Families with children who haven't been able to sleep in their own beds, who are relying on emergency shelters for basic needs like food and warmth. And here's what's keeping me up at night. The weather models are showing this weekend storm could bring wind gusts of 40 to 60 miles per hour along the coast, with sustained winds of 25 to 35 miles per hour inland. Those are winds strong enough to bring down more power lines, to topple more ice-weakened trees, and to potentially undo days or weeks of restoration work. The economic implications of this compound disaster scenario are staggering. Bank of America economists released an analysis yesterday estimating that Winter Storm Fern alone could shave 0.5 to 1.5 percentage points off GDP growth in the first quarter of 2026. That's billions of dollars in economic activity. But a second major storm hitting the same areas before they've recovered could double or triple that impact. American Airlines called Winter Storm Fern the most disruptive storm in the company's 100-year history. They canceled more than 11,000 flights over the weekend, and they're still dealing with cascading delays and cancellations. If this weekend's storm materializes as forecast, we could be looking at another round of massive flight disruptions affecting millions of travelers. What's particularly frustrating about this situation is the model uncertainty. As of this morning, we have the European model showing heavy snow for Boston, potentially 8 to 12 inches. But the GFS model shows less than an inch for the same area. That's not a small difference. That's the difference between a manageable snow event and a crippling blizzard. The reason for this disagreement comes down to storm track. If the low-pressure system tracks 100 miles further west than currently forecast, areas like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City could see significant snowfall. If it tracks further east, the heaviest snow stays over the ocean, and coastal areas see more rain than snow. But here's the thing that has me most concerned. The areas that are most vulnerable right now, the communities in Tennessee, Virginia, and the Carolinas that are still without power. They're in the forecast zone regardless of which model solution verifies. They're going to see winter weather this weekend, and they're simply not prepared for it. The Tennessee Valley Authority, which supplies power to most of Tennessee, has restored 23 of their damaged delivery points, but they still have 8 more to fix. These are the critical infrastructure nodes where their high-voltage transmission system connects to local utilities. If even one of these fails during the weekend storm, it could knock out power to tens of thousands of additional customers. I want to put this weekend's potential storm into historical perspective. The last time the Carolinas and Virginia saw back-to-back major winter storms within a week of each other was during the winter of 1996. That was nearly 30 years ago. And even then, the infrastructure was in much better shape going into the second storm than it is right now. The psychological impact on the affected communities cannot be ignored either. These are people who have been told repeatedly over the past week that help is coming, that power will be restored soon, that things will get back to normal. And just when they're starting to see some progress, they're facing the prospect of getting hit again. I've been tracking social media posts from the affected areas, and the mood is shifting from determination and community spirit to despair and anger. People are running out of patience, they're running out of resources, and many are starting to wonder if they should just evacuate rather than try to weather another storm. The supply chain implications are enormous as well. Trucking companies that service the eastern seaboard are just now getting back to normal operations after Winter Storm Fern disrupted deliveries for days. Rail lines in the region are still operating at reduced capacity due to ice damage. If this weekend's storm hits as forecast, we could be looking at another week or more of supply chain disruptions, affecting everything from medical supplies to groceries. What makes this weekend threat even more dangerous is the timing. We're looking at storm development Friday night into Saturday, with the heaviest impacts likely Saturday night through Sunday morning. That means the worst conditions will hit when most emergency services are operating with reduced weekend staffing, when hardware stores and supply outlets are closed, and when people are least prepared to respond quickly. The National Weather Service has already started issuing winter storm watches for parts of North Carolina and Virginia, and I expect those to be upgraded to warnings by tomorrow morning. The Storm Prediction Center is also monitoring the potential for severe thunderstorms along the warm sector of this storm system, which could bring damaging winds and isolated tornadoes to parts of Georgia, Alabama, and Florida. This is exactly the kind of compound disaster scenario that emergency management experts have been warning about as our weather patterns become more extreme. Our infrastructure simply isn't designed to handle back-to-back major events like this, especially when they hit the same geographic area within days of each other. The bottom line is this. If you're anywhere from eastern Tennessee through the Carolinas and into Virginia, you need to be preparing now for the possibility of another significant winter storm this weekend. Don't wait until Friday to make your preparations. Get your supplies now. Make sure your generators are ready. Charge all your devices. And have a plan for how you'll stay warm and safe if you lose power again. This is a developing situation that we'll be monitoring around the clock. Stay with us for the latest updates. And remember, this isn't just about the weather. This is about communities and families who are already struggling and who may be about to face their biggest challenge yet.